SBC Media.
Welcome to iGaming Daily, analysing the news from the betting and gaming industry all over the globe. Supported by SBC Summit Barcelona, the industry-leading conference bringing you the future of sports betting and iGaming.
SBC Summit Barcelona is the fastest growing sports betting and iGaming event in the industry, happening on the 19th to the 21st of September. Experience the entire global industry coverage under one roof, with 15,000 delegates, over 350 exhibitors, and so much more. Get your tickets now at sbcevents.com.
Publishing its full year 2022-23 financial results recently, Rank Group, the old boy of the UK gambling scene, told of a very British affair in which its Grosvenor and Mecca venues navigated a year of rising inflation, higher energy costs, and the cost of living crisis impacting leisure and hospitality spend. Yet, despite booking £109 million in statutory losses, Rank's leadership is thought to be positive that it has overcome home impacts and that it will return to growth and profits in the new financial year for 2023 and 2024. Speaking to SBC, its CEO John OReilly expressed that Rank is a clear winner of the upcoming White Paper changes, helping transform its land-based venues through some modernising reforms. So, what are the real prospects for UK gambling's oldest boy entering a make-or-break 12-month trading period? This will be the question, amongst others, on today's episode of iGaming Daily, sponsored by SBC Summit Barcelona. And joining me for our first episode after our week break, after our summer break, is Edward Memway and Ted O.C. I'm not going to give you any funky new nicknames because I feel Edward and Ted is sufficient. But how was your summer break, Ted?
Yeah, very good, thanks, James. But glad to be back.
Perfect. And Edward?
Too short. They're always too short, these bank holiday breaks. They should be extended to 4.
Yeah,
That's
but we have had a summer break from the iGaming Daily. We have had a summer break from iGaming Daily, so we've had a week off at least. But yeah, we've just come off a bank holiday weekend here in the UK, and there needs to be a 4-day bank holiday weekend every bank holiday weekend.
There needs to be another royal intervention. You know, the August one especially, 4 days in August. It's needed, it's required.
Yeah, come on, King Charles, give us another bank holiday. That's all we want from you. Cool. So, apart from singing the praises of King Charles on this podcast, like I said, we're going to go into Rank, and it's kind of been a tough financial year for the group. And we will get into Ted O.C. You did an interview with John OReilly. We'll get onto that soon, but just to kind of give context to the interview and where we're going to go with this discussion, Edward, can you just kind of give a breakdown of these financial results? Don't go too heavy into the numbers, but, you know, give us a nice little overview. Kind of explain the costs and losses and the impact mainly on the land-based unit.
Okay, when we're analysing Rank, we really are talking about its 2-year recovery from COVID. And what we're seeing is that, yes, they declared £116 in statutory losses. However, there is an improved performance in the background. Revised results, the operating profits up to 20 million. And we're seeing revenue growth in its digital performance, which achieved revenues of 200 million plus. A comeback for its Grosvenor casinos. And kind of a revision of Mecca Bingo's estates across the UK. It's look, a lot of it is what you want to draw out of Rank and where you place them as a business. There are the headwinds of regulatory pressures. I mean, of just incredibly intense headwinds coming in for the retail and leisure scenes. Underlying, they lost kind of 30 million in energy costs. No one wants to pay that. So it's a lot is down to kind of your individual interpretation of where Rank are as a business.
Perfect. And Ted, you interviewed Rank's CEO, as I mentioned previously. Can you just give us a bit of insight into what he said, OReilly said, on the results?
Sure, James, no problem. So yeah, we spoke to John OReilly just after Rank had published its results, and he had a few real key points to focus on. Firstly, the big elephant in the room was obviously the energy costs, which had soared quite a lot over the past couple of years. Obviously, everyone in the UK is all too familiar with how high energy bills have been getting lately. But O'Reilly was very confident that these were stabilising and that it would become much less of a burden for the group going forward, and given that it's been recording some revenue recovery post-COVID, has provided them with a lot of confidence that they're going to reach profitability but in the second half of this year. On top of that as well, there was also the white paper, which looking forward, they said they don't expect that to really start having an effect on their business until 2024, but they anticipate it to have quite a positive impact. I found this quite interesting because a few other people I've spoke to from across the UK betting industry weren't as positive about the white paper when it came out. So some of them saw it as kind of kicking a can down the alley, was a comment I heard a couple of times with regards to the consultations. However, Rank are quite positive about it because one of the big things from it is that UK casinos are now going to offer sports betting as a result of the white paper, which he saw as quite a modernising reform and bringing UK casinos in line with that of other countries which have offered betting in their venues for quite some time. I think the white paper also allows for an expansion of gaming machines, B1 gaming machines to be specific, in some of these casinos. So he had a lot of positive things to say about that. And lastly as well, Rank is also looking to further digitise its business, particularly on the sportsbook side of things with Grosvenor Sport and in Ratcha. So they're anticipating some strong returns from that as well further down the line.
Did you say they were looking to fully digitise?
Not fully digitise, no. Obviously, I mean, they're still going to be an omni-channel operator in the sense that they've still got Grosvenor and Mecca bingo, but are looking to make more use of the digital side of the business, get more involved in the online side of betting. Okay,
just wanted to clarify that. I don't know, I probably misheard you there. Cool. And Edward, I'll come to you on the next one. Anything off the back of that? Any thoughts off the back of Ted OC's interview with O'Reilly?
It's look, when analysing Rank, there's so many narratives. It's their exposure to kind of hospitality headwinds. Yes, that is clear. How long are those headwinds going to last? The other thing is that, yes, they're positive on the white paper changes being the white paper changes that will substantially improve their land-based venues, but can that offset declines in hospitalities? How many customers are going to be able to go to their venues, and the wider kind of UK economic. Its business actually kind of needs a wider confidence in the UK economy itself. Also, the other narrative here is that yes, Rank are an old boy, but how is it kind of transitioning digitally? What is its kind of like omni-channel roadmap to 2024? What will that look like, and how will it service and how will it balance its strong retail customer with its individual kind of digital consumers? And it's been that's been very, very tough for a lot of businesses.
Mm-hmm. I think that's quite an interesting point where Rank for me, they've been quite overly optimistic in the UK economy when, like you've mentioned, there's many more headwinds to come. You've got the energy crisis, which is kind of subsidising a little bit, but then you've still got the cost of living crisis, which is hitting everyone else. You've got the economy is in an absolute crisis at the moment, and inflation just seems to keep rising and rising. Look, in the next 12 months, is optimistic to think this would not impact them when the white paper is a positive step for them. That's their own positive step. And their kind of focus as well onto the digital transition. I mean, if you're so confident in your land-based operations, but you're putting more emphasis onto your digital assets, I think they kind of clash and contradict themselves a little bit. But Edward, I'm coming back to you on this one. Can you just provide a bit on Rank's transformation and just a bit more insight into it?
Okay, so Rank has actually been transforming for the past 3 years. This isn't anything new. And I think that it's been a transition that's been interrupted, like everyone, by COVID. Also, this was a company
By a
that
lot of things, really. Not just COVID.
they had to kind of renegotiate their balance sheet, and they then created the new digital platform, which was undertaken through an acquisition of a bingo platform, Ride. And this has been an ongoing process for them for the last 24 months. I think what the investors want to see is what platform have they built? What are the foundations for their growth and profits coming in? And what is achievable out of a business that is still very retail reliant against these headwinds. So Rank sits, yes, it's a gambling business, but I think it sits in this kind of segment of very British enterprises that they've got the mother of all challenges coming in for 2023, 2024. And a lot of it depends on, how confident are you of this business and of Rank overcoming these challenges.
Yeah, I mean, I think Ted raises a very valid point there. It's a very uncertain time for a lot of UK gambling operators in general, for both regulatory and economic reasons. With Rank, obviously, any corporate restructuring is going to be a costly affair, and they're doing this restructuring across their whole business with regards to Mecca, Grosvenor, and in Ratchet. So it's very far-reaching, and as we've said, as the scope to be quite an expensive endeavour. Again, if I just want to base this on what O'Reilly talked about. As I said, they're very confident in what it's going to bring about. They're particularly focusing quite heavily on the sportsbook side of things. He said to us that they want to make Grosvenor Sport the sportsbook of choice for Grosvenor customers, which I found interesting because from my perspective, that means that they're targeting existing people who go to Grosvenor who are more bothered about the casino side of things, who might bet elsewhere, with other existing bookmakers, either on the high street or on their phones and computers, and onboard these people away from that and then onto more of a full omni-channel Grosvenor offering. So whether they can achieve that will be quite interesting. Obviously, the main challenge they're going to have there is, as I've already mentioned, the fact that there's already quite substantial existing competition in the UK from a lot of well-established sportsbook brands across the country. So, it's hard to make a judgment right now based on what we've seen on whether this will pay off them in the long run, but it'll be certainly interesting to keep an eye on.
Mm-hmm. I'm just looking at the article that was published on SBC News by Edward. And again, kind of Rank give a positive spin on the financials, as any company would, to be honest. But they're on about kind of optimism and returning to profitability by 2023, 2024. Yet they've continued to close down kind of their Mecca clubs. So I think 15 were closed this year alone. I think they've only got 56 venues now across the UK. Is this more putting a positive spin on more closures? So is it kind of they're closing more things, but kind of painting this as kind of a positive step forward? And if you're kind of painting your land-based sector in a positive way, but you're closing a lot of things to then be like, we're returning to profitability by next year. I was like, well, yeah, you're doing this by closing a lot of your stores, so you're still not in a healthy position. It's just, I don't know. I don't know if you can see where I'm going with this. I just feel like it seems a bit, you're taking a lot of negative actions to then put a positive spin on things moving forward. There might have been a question in there.
I mean, in some ways, it could be viewed as sort of almost a necessary action, given, as we said, the increase in costs of operation lately, which have affected companies across the board, not just Rank. That you are going to have to look at things and think, right, which venues can we close down to reduce costs and just focus primarily on the more profitable ones, the ones that really bring in the most customers. But I do see where you're coming from with regards to that, yeah.
Okay.
I'll just add to that. Look, the closure of venues is inevitable on a transformation. I think they outlined that 2 years ago. Also, they've had quite a tough comeback from the pandemic. At the end of the day, no one wants to book in energy costs that at 30 million plus. and these kind of tough choices have to be made. The other thing is that now, from an investor level, it's gone from, yes, do you have a growth profile? How far you're expanding to what's your bottom line and how efficient you are. And that's what the market values. And that's what we've seen in the last 6 to 8 months. And I think that Rank recognizes that in its actions.
Just kind of looking ahead now, for both of you two, actually, this is a question. Are you still believers in Rank and the kind of, like we've mentioned, they're old boys of the UK scene, gambling scene. Are you still believers in them? And kind of how do they compare now to kind of the Entains or the Flutters?
Obviously, they're not on the same, quite on the same level as the Entains and Flutters. If you just compare revenue, I mean, this still pulling in hundreds of millions, but Entain and Flutter take in billions from around the world. However, I would say on the UK scene, Rank will definitely still be a strong brand. I think, well, not a brand, sorry, a strong group moving forward. If you just look at Grosvenor, for example, as the casino brand, that's a staple of the betting and gaming industry across the UK high street. There's one in most major cities that I know of. And I think that will continue to be the case. Whether they have to reduce it further down the line, who knows? Same with Mecca, they may have reduced it, but as far as bingo brands go, that is, again, one of the standout ones in the UK. So, yeah, they may not be quite on the same level as your Entains and Flutters just because of the enormous size of those two companies. But I do think they'll still they'll still be a strong group going forward, yeah, despite some of the challenges they've been facing.
I think round us off there.
Yeah, look, I think that, and one of the things that Ted's article highlights is that, look, John O'Reilly is definitely a man to kind of monitor and keep a close eye on. And this transformation is important for the whole of the UK gambling because it tells you the story of just how hard it is to operate a casino business when you're up against the elements. And I think, look, I hate to say it, but for Rank, a lot of it is going to come down to luck and how the economy pans out and the consumer confidence in going back and spending more money in leisure and hospitality. In terms of the transformation, what I'd be looking at is how well they integrate new products into to Ride and how well they kind of execute the new kind of UK compliance costs alongside their competitors of the Triple Eights, the Entains, your Flutters. So that is a comparable metric, I think, for any gambling PLC in the UK. I don't want to say if I'm a believer or skeptical, but Rank is definitely like my one to watch in the coming years, and I think it's more down to kind of the narrative and what it tells. And it's a very interesting company, and that's how I'll conclude.
Cool. And kind of any changes, or you said it's one to watch. I'm sure both Ted O.C. and Edward will be covering it on SBC News as it breaks. For all the articles that we've mentioned in today's podcast, I will leave it in the description below. That includes Ted O.C.'s interview with OReilly. For the listeners out there, thank you for joining us. Ted and Edward, thank you as well. Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of iGaming Daily, brought to you in conjunction with SBC Summit Barcelona, being held at the Fira Barcelona Montjuic on the 19th to the 21st of September. If you want to find out more about some of the subjects raised today, feel free to explore any of the sites in the SBC News Network or check out the latest edition of the SBC Leaders magazine. Happy reading.